Good afternoon, folks. My name is Dwayne Maddox. I am the AVP of Marketing and Inclusion Experience at National Guardian Life Insurance. I am proud to be moderating this panel today on finding common ground, how our BIPOC communities can work together. And we have an esteemed panel of guests today that will be imparting some of their knowledge and thoughts on the topic. With that, we're going to start with introductions for the folks on our panel. We'll start with Pardeep and work our way down the line.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Pardeep Palika. I'm with the Interfaith Conference of Greater Milwaukee. We bring together people of different religions, faiths, ethnicities, have discussions, and just the other hat I wear is I'm also co-chair of the AAPI Coalition of Wisconsin, and just honored to be on with everyone today.
Thank you, Pardeep. Armando?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Armando Ibarra. I'm a faculty member in what's known as the School for Workers here at UW-Madison. I'm also an executive board member for Voces de la Frontera, a grassroots activist organization based out of Milwaukee, but now has a statewide presence. And here locally, I'm also on the board of Omega Schools Incorporated. It's a pleasure to be here in community with you all today.
Thank you, Armando. Ronell?
Good afternoon, everybody. Ronell Washington, Partnership Development Advisor for American Family Insurance in our Office of Community and Social Impact. And I'm also the co-founder of Social X, a young professionals group based here in the city of Milwaukee. And I have the esteemed pleasure of also serving on the board of WITA, the African American Chamber of Commerce of Wisconsin, and do some work with Milwaukee Film here in Milwaukee as well.
Thank you. Eric?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Kennedy. My day job is I am part of the community relations team for Advocate Aurora Health. And then one of the many things that I'm very passionate about and honored to be a part of is that I'm one of the co-founders of Elevation. And Elevation is a collective of Asian Pacific Americans in Greater Milwaukee coming together to elevate the visibility and success of our Asian community. And I'm also a executive board member for the AAPI Coalition as well.
Thank you. And Eddie?
All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Eddie Moore Jr. I live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm the founder, executive director of a 501c3 nonprofit here called the Privilege Institute. One of our biggest programs is a national, international conference that brings together a diverse group of people from all over the world to talk about the issues of white supremacy, white privilege, and other forms of oppression. In addition to that, I do a little public speaking and diversity training, and the name of that organization is American More LLC. And I've been grappling since 1996 and are fairly new to Wisconsin, Green Bay. But according to my mortgage, I'm going to be here the next 25 years. And I'm looking forward to being in partnership and family with the folks here. And I'm just excited and appreciate the opportunity to be joining y'all in conversation.
Thank you so much. So with that, I think we'll jump into our first question. I'd really like all of our panelists to take a moment and provide their response to this first question. And then we'll move on into other things in a more conversational manner. But I'd really like to hear from each of our guests, maybe in the same order that we did our introductions. And the first question is, we all come from different communities from all over the state. What are 2 or 3 issues you think impact all of us? What are 2 or 3 issues that impact your community specifically?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just thinking about race and racism and tradition and where this country is right now and because of where we've been, I think we really need to think about our history. I think our history really affects where we are current day. As Eddie was talking about, so just white supremacy and how white supremacy has shaped this country, or hate or division and all. And now we're seeing some of those fruits of that foundation bear their ugly head. I think that it calls on us to all be honest with conversations of where we are, where we need to go forward. My particular community, I think sometimes struggles with that because my parents came here when I was 6 years old, 1982. We weren't so steeped in that history, but we came here and obviously like the immigrant experience is, kind of keep your head down, don't say much, make a living, and buy a house and hopefully not have the mortgage that Eddie has, but for 20, 25 years, but try to pay that off and try to achieve the American dream. In the spirit of all that, there's this negating of all the harm that actually exists. And I think that when I see when I see the Sikh community come here, I think we lose a lot of our spiritual, just religious foundation because we give that up for the American experience. And I think that there are people that are kind of right now don't know that they're dying of whiteness. They don't know if they're dying of whatever that is. But right now, I think that for our community, we're dying as a slow spiritual death because we're not taking on some of the issues that we know that we should be taking on as a faith community.
Great response. Thank you. Armando?
I mean, this is one of those real deep questions that's so big that we could sit here and have a week-long conversation about on any just one issue that we would like to focus on. But the big I think issue that we all deal with. Well, we're living through two pandemics right now. We're living through the COVID-19 pandemic, but we're also living through the multi-generational racism pandemic, right? This racism that has created inequality throughout many communities of color, and also for immigrant communities. One of the things that I'd like to tell folks is that inequality is not something that's fictional. It's a fact. It's a mathematical fact. It's a calculation that our system produces unequal outcomes for people based on this. So we're dealing with that, and that manifests itself in everyday activities that our communities undergo as Wisconsinites. In particular, the communities that I work with, the immigrant working communities, there are a couple of issues that intersect with the larger community. One is labor exploitation. People having their wages ripped off, which is probably one of the most disrespectful things that you could do to a human being, is not pay a person fair wages for a fair job, right? When I exchange my labor for wages, I expect to get those wages paid to me. So we have wage theft, which is a big. And the other one, it really is driver's licenses for all. For a lot of immigrants that do not have proper immigration authorization, and also in-state tuition for documented students and undocumented students. So those are the issues that we are dealing with on a daily basis within these communities.
Thank you. Now?
I saw Eric come off mute. I thought he was going to go next. I think my two brothers, Armando and Pradeep, kind of hit it on the head. But when I was writing my notes down, the first couple things that came to mind on the first part of the question was, white supremacy was the first thing. And I know Brother Eddie will go really deep in on that. Systemic racism, and there's a lack of disinvestment in our communities. And, I think it's really unfortunate that the first two kind of lead to some of that lack of disinvestment. And when I think about a little deeper, some other issues, I think the sheer respect and ability to uplift our Black women and the attack on Black men. And that's really triggering a lot of different things. The Black male is supposed to be the head of the household, the uplifter, the protector, and there's a lack of protection for our young Black men, and they're not able to get to the point to be successful Black men. And when I think about the back half of your question, I wrote down, the disproportionate amount of police brutality that we've just seen this week alone in our communities. I think about the lack of equality and access to capital for, individuals who are trying to be business owners and entrepreneurs. And then I also think education. There's a poor education, and the support for education in our communities of color, in our Black communities. And I could go on and on about, some of the different things. If you just Google research and look at the statistics about Milwaukee and, being one of the most segregated places and one of the toughest places to raise Black children, that narrative needs to change. And, it's kind of somber, that we're having this conversation coming into the week and all the different things that just been happening just the last 4 days alone, let alone the things that have been happening in our Asian community too. But I'm gonna pause there to allow my other two brothers to speak on the conversation.
Thank you. Eric?
Now, I think, thank you, Armando and Pardeep and Ronald for sharing your insight, transparency, and inspiring words. I think all three of you hit the nail on the head, something like that. But anyways,
There you go.
I think that one of the big things for me is that since this is a men's leadership virtual conference, right, is that breaking down the stigma of mental health, right? I think that luckily we're in 21, but still it's hard we are so judged as men about our mental health. And if we admit that we have an issue or we need help, then stereotypically we're seen as less than, or we're seen as, you're not a real man. And what is the definition of a man, right? And I think that for me, someone that struggles with alcoholism, and the fact that I'm almost 6 years sober, and it's not supposed to be, I'm not trying to be like proud of that. I am very proud of that, but I'm not trying to say like, look at me, I'm better than you. But I think the fact that someone like a Pardeep or Ronell have been there for me since my sobriety, and that they've loved me unconditionally. I think that we as a community, we need to continue to embrace people for who they are, remove our lens to respect one another. And as Henry kind of talked about earlier, we may not agree on everything, but we can still have a healthy conversation, right? And I think that the other big thing for me and for us as a community to change the narrative, to reframe the narrative, or to move forward as one is really having healthy conversations, realizing that everyone comes from a different place or a different journey, and really becoming more respectful, but also really embracing that people have struggles and that certain words, certain actions, certain phrases, certain things, we need to continue to be respectful. We're no longer in the 1920s, 1950s, 1980s, 1990s, or even early 2000s, right? Where now more and more people are admitting that they have a mental health need, or they're trying to address something in their life. And I think that we as men need to continue to embrace that and support them and love them like we would as a brother. And I'm lucky and honored to be able to say that Pardeep and Ronell and hopefully now Armando and Eddie and Dwayne, now you are like brothers to me, and where we can go to one another and say, I have a struggle. How can you help support me, and try to identify those resources, identify different things of how we can move forward as a community, especially as men, right? So.
Thank you so much for that, Eric. Eddie?
Yeah, not much more to add. Brother Eric, I'll say also as someone in long time recovery, we're brothers for sure. So let's stay in touch around that. But you said a word that often is not heard when brothers are talking, and that's love. I really feel like, particularly in my greatest levels of addiction, there was an absence of self-love. I think that's one thing trauma produces. And when centuries of trauma is inflicted upon people, one of the things that is a manifestation of that is a lack of love for self. I mean, it's just taken me years to get to the point where I could love me and then be able to now build relationships, partnerships, collaborations. I was always fighting with other Black and brown groups. I was always thinking I needed to get mine, so to speak. And so I think that really one of the issues I think we all share is really that lack of self-love. And Brother Pardeep mentioned it as well, which I think produces assimilation and that kind of mindset. I mean, it's the farthest away from us in our culture that we often want to be in thinking that's going to get us to the greatest level of success. I'll say this lastly as one that I think specific to Black folks, but could have some other connections to others, is what Sean Rochester writes about in his book, The Black Tax, that we are living in a nation that has gained $70 trillion off the lack of access, this capturing and enslavement of African people, the laws that subsequently follow that, the Jim Crow, and some would add Jane Crow, as well as some of the things we're dealing with today, has cost Black folks $70 trillion. I don't think there's been a proper assessment on other Black and brown communities, but I think that makes it unique for us as we think about, is reparation going to repair that gap? I mean, what is going to be the thing that we do to look at these inequities as it relates to a philosophical belief in white supremacy that's been the main fuel, past, present, future, that we have to deal with today, that I don't know if we're often equipped with as we deal with some of these challenges?
Those were all amazing answers, and thank you for that input. Eddie, as you were talking about the Black tax, and, are there similar taxes that have been researched and understood on the part of our other Black and brown brothers and sisters? And I thought about Armando's response when he talked about labor exploitation, and I would think that's a clear example where some of that is. As I took some notes on all the answers, I see this sort of confluence around white supremacy, around marginalization, also about ways to combat that. It seems to begin with self-love and sort of connectivity to loving yourself and being a part of a community to help, get through some of that. And I wonder, I guess I pose a question to this group, do you feel like we have enough platforms, forums, agency, connectivity as communities of color to make these connections like what we're making on this, through this discussion today? Or is it more likely that after this call, after this session, and this 2-day seminar, where we sort of go back to our separate corners? And I'll open that up for anyone to comment on either the efficacy of the forms that we do have or lack thereof to make connectivity between all of our BIPOC communities.
Go ahead, Armando.
Yeah, well, I was gonna give a simple answer. I think we all go back to our work, right? Mm-hmm. We all go back to the organizing. We all go back to dismantling white supremacy within the work that we do in the communities that we work with. But it's all working towards that same common goal, right? Trying to reach a place of equity that is a place of equity for all. But in the sense, we're not working in silos. We're just all working in different areas, trying to dismantle this just monstrous system that's built upon white supremacy that preys on BIPOC communities. And when our paths cross again, we will have the same conversation. But then when we go home, we'll continue to chip away at white supremacy in that fashion through our work.
I was just going to add, thank you, Armando. And I think I was just going to add that when I was thinking about Eddie and Eric talking about recovery, in a way, we're all kind of recovering from some of the effects that white supremacy has had. And if we don't know that we're going through it, right, we're still stuck in, some people are still stuck in denial. Some people don't even understand that there's a race problem. There's race issues. There's inequities that exist at every single level, at every single layer, all over the world. This is not just an American problem. it's so layered and such a reality of everyday existence that we don't even know how bad the problem is. And so when we do go back and we have these discussions, and we have to be gentle on ourselves as men. Men can we can get into a place where we can definitely get antagonistic with ourselves and with one another. And I think that's sometimes the warrior spirit in us. It's kind of innate too. And I think that as we go forward, really channeling that frustration, channeling that anger. I think about the Ubuntu spirit and how boys became men and men showed boys how to become men, and having those conversations. And I'm not trying to make it just this gender sort of like discussion, but I think that there is somewhat of, we need to reclaim that child in all of us that had to go through all that, didn't know how to explain it, that didn't understand what was happening, and then go save ourselves by going ahead and having that conversation with the next one. And if each one of us reaches another one and another one, then we fulfilled that spiritual promise that the ancestors put on us and said, okay, if you want to break that seven generational curse, then you yourself go ahead and embody that healing. Don't ask somebody else to do it. You do it. And 7 generations back will be healed, and 7 generations forward will be healed. But you will go through it because you're the one doing it. And so hopefully for my children, they don't have the same concerns. They'll take on new things, right? And each one of our children will take on new things. But I think that it comes back to us saying, I deserve to kind of be in this discussion with everyone here. And I deserve to also be frustrated and mad and however I feel when I see the news. I should be outraged. I don't ever want to lose that. But I think there needs to be more and more forums, as you say, for men to be able to express our feelings.
Yeah, I'll just add briefly. I think Armando kind of started us off saying that our work is extremely important, and within our respective endeavors, we have a mission, and that mission may be to uplift Black and brown folks, or lift up our Asian communities, and lift up whomever we are experts in. And we shouldn't take that away from one another and want to be experts and stick with our mission. But I do think as we kind of going along within our respective, journeys and daily walks and who we're working with, it's important to, kind of look up and look at those different points of intersectionality and understanding where we can collaborate on different things. So as we, think about experiences and think about platforms and forums, knowing the mission that Eddie now has, that we're connected in, knowing the AAPI coalition's mission and knowing Elevation mission, there may be an opportunity for me through, my work at AmFam or my work at Social X to say, hey, how can I work with Pardeep or Eric and, bring them in and use their expertise to help, move the needle a little more for the common goal or project, And I think that's important, is, being able to come across and see where there's some intersectionality to get, difference of opinion and, difference in expertise, and, be able to provide different types of insight to, some of the different works and opportunities to connect.
I just want to say quickly, Brother Armando started out with, we're going to go do the work. I remember, it's taken me, a good 10 years to even understand solidarity. I knew the definition of solidarity, but I didn't know the practice of solidarity. I thought, okay, I'm working with Armando doing this. I'm working with Eric doing this. I'm working with Party, the folks over here doing this. Me and Ronell, we're rolling down this. And that was my solidarity. But it was actually in, as someone mentioned, silos, in segregation. And so I think it's really important to really revisit what collaboration looks like, what a collective effort on the part of Black and brown folks looks like, BIPOC folk look like. And I think I'm going to close with mentioning MLK. This effort of solidarity some would argue, was the real subject matter that put his life on the line. And so I'm okay going down that road. I mean, I want to be, now that I understand it, I want to be clear when I say to Brother Armando, I'm going back, that I understand what that means, going back to work in solidarity. But I'm myself trying to continue to make sure I'm not just understanding the definition, but I'm actually participating in the practice.
Mm-hmm.
May I add just something really briefly?
Sure.
And I'm glad that we're having this conversation, and that we're bringing Dr. King into the conversation as a guiding post for those of us that seek social justice in our daily lives, in our daily actions. When we talk about this common ground, I truly believe that Dr. King achieved creating that platform for common ground. And I think that the Poor People's Campaign was that culmination of bringing, Black, Brown, Asian, American Indian folks that were going to be descending on DC to fight poverty, right? To fight those root causes of what's causing these ills in our communities collectively. And I just wanted to say thank you for reminding me of the lesson.
It's interesting because one of the questions that was teed up for this discussion, and I don't think they anticipated what we would talk about, and I didn't even ask it, but it talks about, can you talk about the ways that marginalized groups are kept apart to continue harmful power structures? And to Eddie's point, and also to your point, Armando, certainly there's intention in that, right? Where there are some, where there is separation, some of that is intended, some of that is amplified, on purpose. So I think that's something that we must be mindful of and be vigilant about. In some of the prior responses, there was a mention of the compound pandemic, right? The pandemic of white supremacy and then the COVID pandemic. It's hard not to ask a question in any of these forums about the pandemic and its effects on our communities. I would ask it in the context of, what did it reveal in any positive way about the strength and resilience of our communities? And then also, what did it really, bring to the forefront in terms of the many ways in which we're suffering and marginalized? So I would offer that to any of you folks to respond.
I'll start. This question I was thinking about. I was like, another, thinking about COVID. The last 13 plus months, and the first thing that I thought about was Black people have always been making something out of nothing since we've been brought over here from during slavery times and into now. And you think about the times where, we had to rub 2 nickels together to make ends meet, and our innovative spirit. And we've always been creative, and we've always had the opportunity to, thrive out of circumstances where we were 3, 4, 5 steps behind. You know what I mean? Like it's been difficult to move ahead. I think we've had some successes, but just think if the playing field was level. If we weren't set back, if, we weren't, we talked about labor, if we weren't cheap labor for hundreds of years to allow, white slave owners to get ahead and build this generational wealth. So I just think about the ingenuity that we've been able to have for all this time and just figure it out. And I just think about how PPP was disproportionately allocated to Black entrepreneurs during these times, and, underbanked and all those different things. But yet we still been able to, kind of come out ahead. I know we lost a lot of small businesses. Technology has been able to allow us to kind of come ahead. And that was some areas where we weren't quite there yet. But, I just think about the work we've been doing at AmFam to help kind of close some of those equity gaps and make strategic, intentional investments in our Black and Brown communities throughout the city of Milwaukee. And, there's more to do. But, I know that the resiliency that we have, is great to see it, but there's still more work that, we all can do to allow us to continue to thrive and not survive. I think that's another thing too, is, we have to be able to set our communities up for thriving and not just being in survival mode 24/7, 365.
Thank you.
I was going to say quickly, the pandemic is, I think, amazingly, in some positive way, reminding me of love. I mean, the foundation of love that people of color must descend from to be witnessing the kind of criminal assassinations, as well as the healthcare system essentially just taking life away from us in ways that just seem just impossible based on the fact that we're living in America. I mean, to witness, as Brother Ronell mentioned, I'm still recovering from the young kid, right? And I just got news of another young kid in Chicago. And I'm going to go to the coffee shop and get my coffee with love in my heart. Woo, the sheer fact that Black and Brown folks are maintaining their peaceful nature, to me, is a reminder of the kind of elders, the kind of people we descend from, with that kind of love, that kind of faith, that kind of openness to humanity, that I'm being tested, brothers. I don't know about y'all, but I'm being tested. I'm being tested. Let me also say what's been positive to hear people who play ball, right? Make millions and millions of dollars, realizing what lots of people used to say, in America, even though you got all this money, Baldwin used to say that, right? Like all these old schoolers say, it doesn't matter how much money you get, you still And now, I mean, to hear Will Smith, right? Like coming off the mountain of $20 million contracts to make a movie saying, ooh, I'm scared for my kids' life. Tyler Perry saying, right? I think to be feeling like we have people at the highest level of whatever this stardom provides them, now having to realize that they may not be safe driving to the grocery store. I think that's been something that's been amazing in reference to this. Last thing I'll say, and this is coming from Trevor Noah. I just listened to him earlier talking about bad apples. That I think I felt like organizing a white privilege conference for the last 20 years, that I was a guy with an imaginary friend that nobody believed existed. It feels like finally people are willing to say white supremacy, that this is a problem in this nation, that we don't have bad apples falling from a tree. We got a rotten ass tree. And so I think this is a critical moment for this topic as we look ahead these next 25 years. And I'm just ready to be in solidarity with Black and Brown, BIPOC folks, white folks too, whoever a role against white supremacy, I'm ready.
I love that. Whoever's going to roll, that's what we're about. Through this conversation, naturally, I've had my own experience observing what's happening in this country during the pandemic, before the pandemic, during the election, earlier this week, just the news that came through today in Chicago. But I've also observed from my brothers on this panel, both the passion for the work that we do, for the lives that we live, but then also some of the suffering that we have to move through this world with. And, my question to you, earlier on, we talked about self-love and really loving ourselves. And how do you find peace, right? Like, how do you, Eddie, go get your coffee with joy after you watch the news and see what's happening, and after you digest what that means for us in our lives as people of color? some people would describe that as self-care. What does your self-care regimen look like? But in all seriousness, like how do you maintain your sanity? How do you maintain a level of peace to move through the world and do the work that we're called to do? And I would ask that question, of each of you. Just what are the things you do to cope and keep yourself sane and moving through the world?
I think for me, it's really reflecting on the highs and lows of each day and really looking at and meditating on what did I do well? What can I do better? And how can I become a better person the next day? It's also reaching out to brothers and sisters like Ronell and Pardeep and so many other community members throughout Eastern Wisconsin and Wisconsin as a whole and wherever, and just checking in on them and also checking in on you and having genuine and meaningful and purposeful conversation. As I kind of talked about earlier, I love eating. So one of the big things for me is that I love, and Ronell knows this as well, is that I love bringing people together and breaking bread with them, right? And with no agenda, no ask, but really just coming together and just having meaningful and purposeful conversations, right? And just checking in and saying, hey, how are you? Tell me more about what I can do to help you during this time. Is there anything that I can do for your loved ones? I think that reflection, meditating, I think seeking out and finding that support system, whether it is your family or your friends or whoever, whether it's working out, but just being okay that how can I become a better person the next day and the next day and the next day, and having that mentality, but also trying to find other ambassadors, advocates, partners in crime, so to speak, that are going to be like-minded and that really want to lift you up and elevate you instead of talking negatively about you or saying, oh, Eric's such a bad person, but saying tell me more why you did that. Let's have a healthy conversation about that. But it's coming from a place of love instead of tearing that person down. I think that for me, I'm a better person because of Ronell and Pardeep and so many others, because they allow me to be me, but they also hold me accountable. And they also do it in the place of love. And they also will support me through the highs and lows and say, hey, I know that you've had a rough week. What can I do? And maybe it's just listening, or maybe it's just giving someone a meal or something like that. But for me, reflection and seeking out and going to my friends and my family and loved ones really helps me continue to do the work that I am doing now.
Thank you for that, Eric.
I think as reflecting on that question, maybe I'm not the best person to ask that question to, as far as just the self-care and stuff. Before I was with the Interfaith Conference, I was a clinician, a trauma clinician, and had a lot of clients where something tragic happened to them. Through the past 10 years, I think I've gone to most of the mass shooting sites around the United States and have been part of that world for so long that it's become normal. And I know that it has changed me. I show up different for my family. I show up different for friends. Things that used to matter don't matter anymore. But in a good way, in a kind of a good way, is that, and I think the self-care that sometimes, I see it in my children. I see it in community. Eric talked about brotherhood. Eddie talked about love. Yeah, everyone is talking. As far as just today, where, for me, it's just you see God everywhere. You see it in everything. You see it in the small things. And I think that a state of happiness is not necessarily something good happening in your life. And a state of sadness is not something bad happening, right? It's for all of us to kind of uniquely know what our mission will be in life, what path we're going to have. We only have a certain amount of time. And each one of us, what we're doing is really we're walking each other home. That's essentially what we're doing on this existence, is we're just walking each other home. And I think the more compassionate kind that we can do that with, and then also at the same time, also be good to yourself. I think for for some of us, self-care will be something that we can do. For me, I just don't see it as a thing that I can do maybe until maybe when I get to 70 or 75. And I just got to kind of be honest with that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Pardeep, and thank you for this question, and thank you, Eric. I guess I've come to terms that it's okay to be angry, and I've come to terms that it's okay to not be to speak out when you need to. It's okay to come from a position of sadness. It's okay to not overwork yourself in any single movement. One thing I know that's when I was younger and I was deeply embedded within the labor movement. One is that you live for the movement, right? Mm-hmm. And that is your life, everything. And I've come to learn that there's lots of social justice movements, but there's one humanity. And so I focus on the humanity of folks in movements, and I focus on the humanity in my daily activities. And I think that keeps me at least level most of the time. And I've come to terms that being okay is a good place to be. Mm-hmm. And those are some of my own personal lessons of how I do self-care. And as being a father, I have a 6, a 5, and a 4-year-old, and they keep me honest. My partner keeps me honest, right? I got one of those long-term mortgages too that I'll be working towards to pay off. And I'm okay with that, right? It's just that focusing on the humanity of movements and on the humanity of these conversations is what keeps me going.
Thank you, Armando.
I didn't know.
Any other thoughts?
Okay, Renelle, I didn't know if we we're going to switch the order one time. We'll try one time. Back to what Eric was saying earlier. I mean, when you in long-time recovery, I'm a crackhead with a PhD, fellas. You know what I'm saying? Every morning I wake up. I mean, one of the things I think helpful for me is I realize one day at a time I'm on borrowed time. I got a second chance. I'm fortunate, blessed to be one of those folks that have come out of one of the most destructive times and destructive drugs, I think, in history, crack cocaine, and to be able to live and tell my story. So I don't take that lightly. That's number one. But this other piece, and Pardeep had me thinking about this as well, self-care has become a practice. I talked about this on 365, the podcast, that I had to learn how to do that, because I didn't get very good lessons. I learned you work harder, you wake up earlier, you work even harder, you stay later, right? I remember hearing about people in the UK taking like a month's vacation. Like, what's wrong with these white folks? How do they get a month off, right? That seems so absurd, right? I used to feel guilty, spending a little money going away. And I've had to revisit all of that. I had to really, just even learn the practice of self-care. That's what I say. Self-care is a practice. And I've had to learn to do it better. And so that's another thing that I will say. And I used to perform care as opposed to take care, because I was a performer. I was an athlete, right? I could look the part. I was a functioning crack addict. So I used to perform care. Now I'm making an effort to take care. And one of the things I love to do, and once it gets warm, I hope somebody will meet me in Green Bay, or I'll meet you in Milwaukee, or we can meet in Madison and play a little golf. That's one of the things I do that gets me out, lets me kind of just breathe and scream and shout and network. So that's one of the things I try to build into my summer life for sure, because I enjoy it. But I'm saying this is a part. I made a commitment to take care and assign something as a part of that. That's non-negotiable. And so I don't perform care anymore. I take care. Renelle.
Look, I think y'all covered most of it, but for me, like Pardeep, I am a man of faith. So prayer, like Eric said, meditation, we don't have traditional Sunday school service right now because of the pandemic, and we're still doing virtual at my church. But our Sunday school class has moved to Wednesday evenings, and it's a small group of intergenerational Christians, and we've now are spread out. Most are based in Milwaukee, but some that have since moved to different parts of the United States, have the opportunity to join in. And, that's been like a saving grace to have that time to kind of, get that prayer, tell each other what's going on in our respective lives, talk about the different things in pop culture that's going on, the blights in our community. And that's been my opportunity to kind of do what we're doing now and speak and be very transparent, honest, and vulnerable, and, receive some of those blessings and prayers along the way. I think the other thing too that Armando hit on is there's a level of humanity and human decency that we have to practice each day. That goes in part of our self-care. Is my level of self-care may be different from all my brothers on this panel. And if I see that they're struggling, I have to do something to step up and ask that question and say, where's your energy level at today? What are you doing? What are you practicing self-care? I think some people, you have to pull them away and ask. I'm thankful for my team lead, Liana, proud Latina. She asked me, she knows I'm a workaholic. She knows that I do a lot in community, and she checks in with me. And even, my brother, Joaquin, who was, formerly I used to work with in banking, we had this rapport. And I feel like when you have leadership that resonates with you and knows where you come from and knows your story, they can pull you aside to make sure that you're doing the things that you need to check in on yourself. So I got excited when Brother Eddie said, he was an athlete, and I'm like, oh, he a runner. I can see it. He got the runner build. So, but when he said golf, I'm not great at golf, but Eddie, we can get some miles in. One of the things through Social X is we got a running group called Fear, Forget Everything and Run. And if anybody does run, we can definitely go out for a short run, jog, whatever you need to do to kind of clear the air, get your spirits high, get that runner's high, and just kind of, allow your mind to be free. But, self-care is important to me. I love working out. I'm a big workout person. Eric and I actually met at the YMCA when late 2000s, I think that was, doing this very crazy HIIT class with one of the brothers there named Lonnie. And it was a joy. It'll break you down, but you'll be lifted up because they're going to pull you along the way. And I think that's one of the things that within all of our respective communities is that we can agree that we need to lift each other up and kind of reach back and pull each other along the way.
Thank you for that. Those are all I don't think fantastic would capture the depth and vulnerability that you brothers have spoken with today. So I really genuinely appreciate that. I heard some comments about, we're one humanity, comment that we're really just walking each other home. Pardeep, that hit me. That was deep. I'm going to talk to my wife about that one. But, in light of that context, that we're one humanity, that we're walking each other home, how do we become better allies to each other? I know we've kind of touched on it in all of our answers today, but if there's something specific that you can think about in the context of this moment in time that we're in, where you could say, one or two things that you think, just might help us be better allies and more human to each other as we work our way through this day and time that we're in.
So for me, I'll go. As Renell and Pardeep kind of know, I love building relationships with different people and meaningful relationships, right? And I think that for me, I am very mindful of connecting them to the right initiative, opportunity, and having that mentality is that it may not benefit me directly, or it may not even benefit me indirectly. But if I have that rapport or that love and respect for that business or that organization, or for Renal or Pradeep or so forth, I want to help elevate them and also give them the opportunity that I've been given in so many different ways, and still continue to this day, is that I want to help connect them and help them follow through on their passion and in their dream and their mission to really reframe the narrative of our community. And I think that just having that mentality that it's not all about me, right? I wish it was when I was a kid, but it's not. But being able to embrace that mentality of like, it's not about me, but it's more about the community. How can I, as a community leader or a community member, help my brother or my sister or that organization or that faith-based congregation to elevate and raise the visibility of their mission and their cause and their passion? I think that it's also being able to know when to speak and when not to speak, right? And listening, and that being there as a sounding board or shoulder to cry on, or just being there emotionally, spiritually, mentally, or just in person as well. And just it goes back to, it may not be directly impacted by you, but just showing that support and that love and saying that, what can I do to help you right now? And whether that's connecting or just providing a meal or donating or doing whatever, but being a good community member, being a good brother, being a good sister, and really helping lift the spirits and the visibility of others. So.
Thank you, Eric. That's great.
I was going to build off the spirit of being good, as Brother Eric mentioned. I was going to say being a good token. I feel like in this community, in these communities, in the state where we live, we're going to often find ourselves in token positions just by the nature of the population. And you know what? I think that's okay. I mean, I tell kids all the time when they face me as the first brother they've only seen or they may ever see in their classroom, in their community space, every Black man you meet from here on out is just like Dr. Eddie, right? I want to be a good token, a good sign for them. And I think sometimes some of what gets in the way of our collaboration, our collective effort, is that we're trained in this silo model. I help Black kids. I help Black boys. And so I know myself, and when I'm saying this, when I'm talking this out, I'm not excluding myself from this. This is stuff I'm still working on. I'm still learning. But I feel like as we find ourselves in these tokenized positions, sometimes some of what contributes to the division is the person of color. And maybe it's intentional at times. I'll say that, but sometimes it's just the way they've learned to be in that position. And so I think that's one thing I'm trying to do myself, is to really not work with one group of people, but work with a collective, a community of folks, and get better at that, and seeing and recognizing my own biases, trying to get better at seeing, recognizing, checking up my own stuff so that I can truly be not someone that just works with Black people, but works with a collection of folks. And Black folks is just one of the things that I come from, and I'm more experienced at, but that's not all I am. And so that's how I kind of look at that expansion.
Thank you.
One of the things that I respect, one of the many things that I respect about this conversation is how we have more in common. This to me is collaboration right now. This to me is, exchange of ideas. This to me is the type of a format where we exchange these ideas to create that ideological understanding of collectivity and how we right some ills that we have in our society right now. With all our individual work, but in these collectivities is how we move forward. I think for me, the simplest way to move forward and to build coalitions or to build common ground is really everything starts from the basic premise of respect. I respect, your movement. I respect your leadership style. I respect the direction of your agenda towards societal change. And that's where it starts. I probably don't understand it, but I respect it. And there's opportunities to engage in collective work. For example, right now there's there's a caravan that's coming across the country that's demanding citizenship for all essential workers. And it's coming through Wisconsin now. It will actually be in Green Bay, this caravan, on the 19th. It'll be in Madison on this Friday. It was in Wisconsin's Dells yesterday. So this caravan's coming through Wisconsin. Then 60 essential workers that happen to be immigrant workers, essential frontline workers, will be caravanning to DC to do lobbying around that social justice issue, right? We don't have to understand it, but we've got to respect that these folks are fighting for respect and for dignity. And ultimately, when we get to that level of understanding that we're all in it for the respect and dignity, and to correct these ills that white supremacy has placed on us, then I think we do create this collective ideological understanding that your struggle is my struggle.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
In essence, I think, so I get the fortunate, task of working with lots of different faiths, from Christians, Muslims, Jewish community, and lots of different denominations. And one of the things that, from the essence of our faith, we do believe in universal values of dignity, but the practicality of it, we have also built walls. We also have built silos. We have built divisions. And so I think coming back and thinking about, when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about my father, and my father was a farmer. And a lot of times what he did was he tilled soil, and he loved tilling soil to the point that he would show up at my house, even once I was married and had kids, and try to show me off and really start to get the weeds picked and try to show you, I'm working harder than you are. He was that typical first generation, right? Immigrant was like, I'm going to outwork my son, and I'm going to show him that he's being lazy. Right. And I think that what we do need to do as we go forward is really, when we get to truth and reconciliation, we need to make sure that we are always coming back to what is truth, till up that truth, as ugly as that truth might be, as much as we might not want to see it. But if we want to get to genuine reconciliation, go ahead and just ensure that we're tilling up that truth.
Got
My couple points I'd say quickly would be that we have to continue to honor our historical differences. Each of us in our background, culturally, racially, ethnically, have gone through different things. And I think we need to honor that fact. However, coming together, what we do know and can all agree on is that we're not going to allow the status quo to define the futures for each of our respective, races and ethnicity, And I think that's a common goal that we can all agree on, is that for the betterment of, the next Renell, the next Eric, the next Eddie, the next Armando, the next Pardeep, is that we want it to be better for them, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. So, this forum allows us to have that conversation. I know that we will go back to our respective communities, homes, neighborhoods, and do the work. And I think we have the ability to empower those that we have the opportunity to be, as Eddie said, maybe the token in our respective places, to ensure that we all have a seat at the table. And if that table doesn't have enough chairs, then we can go make our own table. So I'm excited to have the opportunity to do that. I know that, myself and Eric and Pardeep have the opportunity to work on a lot of different projects and missions, projects and different types of opportunities here in Milwaukee. But, the opportunity to work with Armando and Eddie and even you, Dwayne, I look forward to that. I think the opportunity to just affect change largely in Wisconsin is needed. We've seen the statistics about our state and how segregated we have been. And this is a true opportunity to build bridges, not only between Milwaukee and Madison, but beyond.
Awesome. Thank you. I know that we're starting to run up against the clock here, but I will sort of close now rather than try to open up another discussion and cut us short. But I will say this was powerful. Like, I feel inspired by this conversation. I definitely want to keep in contact with you, brothers. So there will be an email coming after this discussion to get us connected on one email chain. And I do play a little bit of golf, so we will be doing some of that as well. The running, I don't know, Renell, you look like you can run a couple miles. I'm good for 1.5 miles, but we'll come back to that.
Look, we'll start there.
All right. Meet me where I'm at. That's what they say, right? Meet me where I'm at. So I think with that, I'm gonna close this discussion for now. And I know that since we're the final discussion, we're gonna have to bring Mr. Henry Sanders back into the discussion here to close out the entire summit. So with that, I hope Henry is available and ready to join the conversation. There he is, like magic.
Yeah. Ta-da! Gentlemen, thank you. That was a wonderful conversation. Got a lot of good comments from people texting me, and even our staff was just like, wow, how wonderful this conversation was. So I want to thank each of you for closing us out on the right tone about a common ground, how we all can work together and focus on uplifting each other. Even when we disagree, be respectful in that. So thank you. It was an honor to hear the depth and the conversation. It was authentic. So thank you, Mr. Maddox, for moderating this, and thank you for everything that you did there, brother. We appreciate you.
It was an honor. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me.
Yes, and thank you, Armando, for again dropping your wisdom on us, and thank you for that. He was on a different panel with us, I think our leadership summit, or a bigger one. So thank you again for helping us, and hope we can keep you back, brother. Keep bringing you back if you have us. So thank you, Armando. Thank you, Pardeep, man. Thank you for all that you're doing. And you broke my heart when you talked about all the places you were going across the country, where all these shootings and stuff, and that this became your norm. That broke my heart, man. And my prayers go out for you, that you continue to have the heart and the compassion and the endurance to keep doing that work, because we need people doing it. So keep your heart open, man, and keep the faith what you're doing. So I appreciate you. Eric's the first time I heard you really do your thing, man. And so thank you, Eric, for joining us. And we want to keep you coming back, bro. And I think everything you're doing over there, man, thank you for your wisdom. And tell Milwaukee we said what's up. We love Milwaukee over there, man. So thank you, Eric.
Thank you for having me. Truly honored.
And Mr. Eddie Moore, every time I hear your story, man, like the passion, authenticity, like that, you're just so authentic at all times, man. So I appreciate that. And you're also being vulnerable about your past. And you talking about tying together. I think that's powerful stuff, man. And it hopes it's inspiring others. So thank you for that, brother. Brunel, man, my man, he's smiling now. There you go. He's smiling. He's always so serious. A young man always so serious. I don't get it. As pretty as he is, why is he always so serious? You know what I'm saying? Renell, man, thank you for everything you're doing, man. Thank you for talking about your faith too, and tying your faith into how it brings you as a man of faith. That ties in everything that I do. And so thank you for bringing it in a way that people can understand that's a real life. So thank you for your wisdom always, man. So thank you all for joining us. And so all the people who've been with us for the past 2 days, hopefully you enjoyed these 11 panelists, over 45 panelists, all men of color, talking about issues going on in our community. It was historic for the state of Wisconsin to have this type of conversation from these different people from different backgrounds. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you listened. Even if you disagree, at least listen to a different perspective. That's what we call it. That's empathy. Taking yourself out of your perspective and listen to other people's perspective. I hope you learned. And I also hope you saw that this state has a lot of talent, a lot of men of color who are doing big things. So when you hear these negative narratives or pictures about men of color in our state, I hope this blows that paradigm up in your mind and says, wow, all the stuff that people of color are doing in the state. And I hear you right now. I hear all the women in my ear saying, what about the women son? We got you. We got you. So June 16th and June 17th, it's already, you can go register right now. You can go register right now if you want. The Women's Leadership Summit, that's going to be in June. And then in October, we're bringing everyone back for our bigger leadership summit. We're still figuring out how we're going to do that, with COVID, how we're going to, for person or not, but that's in October. But for your women, June 16th, June 17th, it is on. We are having a PEC 2-day summit just like this for women. Of course, men, you can all come. You can all come to it too. But that's happening. So you can register right now. And to everyone who's with us for the 2 days, thank you for all the panelists who I haven't talked to. Thank you for all the moderators. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Thank you. And I promise we'll see you next time. We'll keep giving you more of this content. We will push this out on our platforms later, on our Facebook and YouTube channel stuff. So this will be out. So expect to see that soon. But we're truly honored for all of you. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
This is 365 Media.